You know that person who always says no to plans? The one who ghosts group chats for days and resurfaces like nothing happened? The one everyone assumes is lonely, sad, maybe even broken? Yeah. They're not what you think, and the reason you don't understand them is exactly why they're operating on a frequency most people will never access. Let me tell you something that's going to sound insane at first. The people who genuinely love being alone aren't running from connection. They're not afraid of intimacy. They're not damaged or antisocial. They've discovered something most of us spend our entire lives avoiding. They've learned how to be with themselves without distraction. And that ability, that one simple skill, gives them powers you wouldn't believe. Because here's what nobody tells you. Solitude isn't loneliness. Loneliness is what happens when you're desperate for external validation and it's not coming. Solitude is what happens when you've found the volume knob on the world and realized you can turn it down anytime you want. One is suffering, the other is sovereignty. A study from the Journal of Personality and Social Psychology found that people who regularly engage in voluntary solitude show higher levels of emotional regulation and creativity, not less, more. They're not withdrawing from life, they're concentrating it. They're distilling reality down to its essence, while everyone else is drowning in noise. Think about how you spend most of your day. You wake up and immediately check your phone. Someone needs something. Someone said something. Someone's mad, happy, posting, performing. You go to work and you're surrounded by voices, expectations, small talk that feels like sandpaper on your soul. You come home and turn on the TV or scroll or call a friend because the silence feels wrong, feels empty, feels like failure. But what if I told you that silence isn't empty? What if it's full? What if every moment you spend running from being alone is a moment you're running from the most important relationship you'll ever have? The people who love solitude figured this out early. Some of them learned it by accident. Maybe they grew up in chaotic homes, and their bedroom was the only sanctuary. Maybe they were misunderstood as kids and found books, art, or nature to be better company than humans who never quite got them. Or maybe they just have a wiring that the world doesn't celebrate. A wiring that says, I don't need you to complete me. I'm already whole. And that's where the first power comes in. People who love being alone have unshakable self-awareness. They know who they are because they've spent time with themselves. Real time. Not distracted time. Not Netflix in the background time. Not I'm technically alone but scrolling time. They sit in the raw presence of their own mind and they don't flinch. They've met their shadows. They've observed their patterns. They know why they react the way they do. And because of that, you can't gaslight them. You can't manipulate them. You can't make them doubt their reality. They've spent too much time cross-referencing their inner experience to fall for your version of events. Most people don't have that. Most people only know themselves through other people's eyes. They need someone to tell them they're smart, attractive, valuable, and when that feedback stops, they crumble. But the person who loves solitude, they've built their sense of self in the dark, alone, without applause. That foundation doesn't crack. Here's the second power, and this one messes with people. They have almost superhuman focus. You know why? Because they've trained their brain to exist without constant stimulation. They can sit with boredom and not panic. They can work on something for hours without needing a dopamine hit every 12 seconds. In a world where the average attention span is now shorter than a goldfish, according to Microsoft research, these people are operating like monks, like snipers. They can hold a thought, develop it, complete it. They're not fragmenting their consciousness across 40 tabs and 6 apps. They're here, fully. And that focus makes them dangerous in the best way. You put someone like that in a room with a problem, and they'll solve it. Not because they're smarter than everyone else, but because they can actually think. They can sit still long enough to let the answer emerge. Meanwhile, everyone else is refreshing, checking, scrolling, avoiding the discomfort of not knowing. The person who loves being alone has made peace with not knowing. They've made peace with discomfort itself. Which brings us to power number 3. They have an emotional independence that looks almost alien to most people. They don't need you to be okay. They want connection, sure, real ones do, but they don't collapse without it, and that makes them the healthiest people to connect with, because they're not coming to you with a desperate need to be saved or validated or entertained. They're coming because they choose to, because you add something, not because you fill a void. There is no void. Psychologist Rollo May talked about this. He said the opposite of loneliness isn't togetherness, it's intimacy. And you can't have real intimacy if you're terrified of being alone. Because then you're not choosing the other person. You're clinging. You're using them like a drug to avoid yourself. But when someone is comfortable in their solitude, their presence with you is a gift, not a transaction. And here's where it gets wild. People who love being alone often have richer inner lives than people surrounded by friends. They have entire worlds in their heads. They think deeply. They imagine. They create. They don't just consume culture. They generate it. Some of the most influential artists, writers, scientists, and philosophers in history were borderline hermits. Nikola Tesla, Emily Dickinson, Isaac Newton. They weren't lonely. They were full, but society doesn't get this. Society pathologizes solitude. We've built an entire culture that equates alone with wrong. If you're not out, not social, not networking, not posting, you're failing. You're missing out. You're wasting your youth or your potential or your chance at happiness. But what if that's the lie? What if the real waste is spending your whole life performing for people who don't even know you? The people who love being alone stopped performing. They stopped pretending. They stopped shaping themselves into whatever gets the most likes, the most approval, the most acceptance. And in that stopping, they found something so rare it's almost mythical in modern life. They found authenticity, not the Instagram kind, the kind that only exists when no one's watching. And maybe that's what threatens people. Maybe when someone is genuinely content alone, it's a mirror. It reflects back how dependent we all are, how fragile our happiness is, how much we've outsourced our sense of self to others. And mirrors like that, they're uncomfortable, so we call them weird, cold, loners. We try to fix them, save them, bring them back to the noise. But they don't need saving. They never did. They're not lost in the wilderness. They are the wilderness, untamed, unbothered, unbroken by the need to be anything other than what they are. If you're someone who loves being alone, you already know this. You've felt the judgment, the concern, the subtle suggestions that something's wrong with you. But nothing's wrong. You've just accessed a level of peace most people are too afraid to reach for. Keep protecting that. Keep honoring that. And if you're someone who doesn't understand it, who feels anxious when the plans get canceled and the house gets quiet, maybe ask yourself why. What are you running from? What would happen if you stopped? What would you find if you sat in the silence long enough to hear what it's trying to tell you? Because the secret isn't that some people love being alone. The secret is that being alone is where you meet yourself, and most of us are terrified of that meeting. But the ones who aren't, they're free in a way the rest of us are still trying to buy, chase, or earn. And freedom like that doesn't come from other people. It never did. If this resonated with you, there's something even deeper you need to understand. There's a hidden psychological shift that happens when you stop fearing silence, and it changes the way you relate to success, relationships, and even your own identity. Click on one of the videos on your screen now to discover why people who are comfortable alone often develop a mental advantage most people never unlock, and how you might already be closer to that power than you think. And if you value content that challenges the way you see yourself and the world, make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss what's coming next. Leave a like if this gave you a new perspective. It helps this message reach the people who need to hear it.